Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for August 2nd through 8th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 1 show, I watched 4 movies, and I listened to 3 books. Firstly, apologies ahead of time if the framing changes suddenly, because you are very precariously placed on a cot with some blankets on it, and you're not exactly level, but I can't get you any better than that, and you could fall over at any moment, especially if that cat decides to come back in here. I'm also filming this after spending the night with a cat who hogged the entire bed, so I'm tired a little bit. But my good friend Coffee should help me get through this. The first book that I finished this week is A Treachery of Swans. This seemed like the type of books that I should really like because it's got theater and it's got sapphics, so what's not to like, right? Well, apparently, at least for me, what not to like included the writing style and not really giving a crap about the plot of this because you could completely tell who is going to end up being evil at the end. And as much as I wanted to like this, I didn't really. It was fine, but it wasn't great. This world is modeled after centuries-old France, and the main character in this one is a girl named Odile. She has a brother, although she hasn't associated with him in about 5 years, and neither of her parents are in the picture, so she's actually been adopted by this guy who runs a theater. She's now about to use her wonderful acting abilities to try to pull off a heist to get a magical item so her new father can do some things and bring magic back to the world, because her and him and other people have gold blood, and if you have gold blood you can wield magic, but only if there's magic in the world to wield. And at this point there's a little bit so you can enchant certain items and do things that way, but you can't just like freely use magic. However, obviously things aren't as straightforward as one would hope, and things go awry several different times. This was fine, I just didn't really feel myself compelled to continue reading it. I would read a chapter and be like, hey, I could finish more because I should probably finish this book sometime soon, and I'd be like, oh, but literally anything else sounds good right now. And that's actually a pretty good segue into my next book, which I thought was going to take me a very long time to read because it's just over 500 pages and anything of that length intimidates me, and that's Sweetbitter Song. This I knew absolutely nothing about going into it besides that it's queer because it's on a queer quest on Pagebound. And it turns out that this was pretty good timing to read this because The Odyssey came out, which is a movie that I didn't even know was in production until it was everywhere, but this actually has to do with what I imagine are background characters in that story, because Odysseus definitely shows up in this one, but he is not the main character. The main character in this one is actually this woman who is enslaved and for a short time as a child is the companion to the person who ends up actually marrying Odysseus, and while he's off doing war and gallivanting, they are falling in love with each other. Like I said, going into this, because all I knew about it was the page length, I thought it was going to take me a really long time to read it, but I think I read this in about 3, maybe 4 days. I constantly wanted to continue reading this one. Every time I finished a chapter, I was like, but no, I need to know what happens next. And because we are talking about characters who show up at least in the background of stories that have been told before, I did know some of the names going into this. I was like, oh yeah, I think I've remembered this person's name from having read things from mythology before. But I'm definitely not an expert in any of these stories, so it was really fun to go into this because I didn't actually know how most things were going to go. The writing in this one is absolutely beautiful. It flowed so well. It kept me so engaged with these characters. Even though this one takes place over decades, we start out with the main character being about 10 years old, and I think by the time we get to the end of this part of the story, she's probably more like 50 in the epilogue. I can't remember exactly how old she would have been, but it goes that long, and I was engaged the entire way. The third book that I finished this week is Everyone Hates Kelsie Miller. This is a book about this girl who is the smartest girl in school, except for she's always butting up against this other guy that's in school. They're constantly being the two people in their smart person school that are basically getting 100% in all of their classes, and they're about to go into their senior year, so they are battling for valedictorian. Both of them unfortunately have this problem where her best friend left to live on the other side of the country and they haven't talked and she can't figure out why, and his girlfriend that he met over the summer is kind of ghosting him. Turns out both of those people are going to be at UPenn in a couple of days, so he decides that they should both road trip down there to talk to their relative people. And along the way, do they learn some things about themselves? Yes, they definitely do. I love a road trip story. I love when people are forced into a car together and they have to basically talk to each other because what else are you going to do on this 4.5-hour drive? And this definitely falls into the realm of, wow, these kids are geniuses, but also they're not really smart in some aspects, and I can attest that's definitely a thing that does occur. For example, our main character Kelsie is definitely demisexual, and I am also demisexual, and part of that means you don't really understand when people have a crush on you or hitting on you. At least that was my experience back then, and probably still now. I don't imagine that people are actually ever flirting with me or anything like that, but maybe it's happening and I still don't know. As for the one show I watched this week, it was another couple of episodes of Future Man. We finished the first season, which means we're going to go into the second season at some point soon. This show just continues to be interesting and fun because it's full of sci-fi tropes. It's playing with the form of what happens if you go back in time or you go to the future and what happens and how things change, and it's just a good time. Especially because we get to see different versions of the same character and how different timelines make that person act. As for the movies I watched, the first one is The Spy Who Dumped Me. This was actually a rewatch. I didn't realize I had seen this movie before until it started playing, and I was like, oh, yep, some of these aspects seem familiar, but it wasn't clear enough in my mind that I knew what was going to happen. This one is about a girl who has been dumped by her boyfriend, and it's her birthday, and she's kind of bummed about that, but her best friend is amazing, so she's trying to make it really, really fun for her. And then the CIA shows up and is like, your boyfriend was in fact a spy, he works for us, and we don't know where he is right now, so that's a whole problem. And now she's freaking out, she doesn't know what to do, she doesn't know who to believe, and then she ends up going on this big adventure with her best friend in tow because of reasons. It's fun, it's action, it's ridiculous. The next two movies are also rewatches, one of them being Miss Congeniality, because why wouldn't you want to watch this movie again? Also, this movie is old enough to rent a car by itself, aka it's 25 years old. If you've somehow never seen this movie before, it's about this woman who works for the FBI and they need to put somebody undercover at a beauty pageant, and she ends up being that person, and it's a whole thing because she's definitely not the type of person who would want to do a beauty pageant, or sorry, scholarship competition. But she ends up getting a complete makeover and just trying to blend in, and it's antics, it's fun. Because we had just watched Sandra Bullock in that, we then moved on to watching Ocean's 8, which again, I had seen before, but it's been a while, so why not watch it again? It's good fun times. It's a big heist movie. If you know anything about the Ocean's franchise, of course it's a heist movie. And it's just one of those movies where you're like, what do you mean this person is also in this? What do you mean? This cast list is amazing. Which means, of course, we had a lot of fun. The one movie I watched this week that I had not seen before is Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is the one that's in theaters, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it besides I really appreciated a lot of the aspects of this. If you know how the last Spider-Man ended, you know that this one is going to be a very different situation for this character. I really enjoyed how this one dealt with loneliness and timelines and bringing in other characters. Some of them I know from other movies, and some of them I'm like, I've definitely not watched all of the Marvel things between the last movie and this, so there was a new character I was like, I don't know who this is, but that's fine, it was explained, it's great. And being as vague as possible, there was a crossover element that made a lot of sense to me, and I really enjoyed that actor reveal because I was like, I had no idea this person was going to be in this franchise, and obviously I've seen this person in a different, very big franchise, and that was good times. So yes, being as vague as possible, it's a Spider-Man movie, of course I was gonna like it, and I did. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being A Banh Mi for Two. This one has two different point of view characters, one of them who lives in Saigon, and not only does her family own a street vending business for food, they make banh mi's, you might be able to guess from the title, but she also runs a kind of tourism-based Instagram account specifically about the hidden gems of Saigon. The other point of view character is an American student of Vietnamese heritage. Both of her parents are from Vietnam, and unbeknownst to them, she's actually here for 4 months. They think she's on an exchange trip to a different country, but she's always wanted to come to Vietnam, and her mom has never wanted her to go because her mom escaped when things were very rocky, and she still thinks Vietnam is a very dangerous place. She also is a follower of the first character's Instagram account, and because of this has always wanted to go to Saigon. Do they end up crossing paths? Of course they do. Do sparks fly? Of course they do. This book was great because I ended up learning some different things about Vietnam that I didn't previously know, because I don't know a ton of world history. I know little snippets here and there, but they definitely don't teach you everything in school. And I was actually listening to this on a very long walk, and when I took my lunch break on that very long walk, I stopped at a place that I definitely knew had a banh mi, a tofu banh mi that I could eat, and that just felt like the perfect thing to have for lunch that day. The second audiobook I listened to this week is a short one, and that's Feminism is for everybody. This one is by Bell Hooks, and it's meant to be basically a primer about feminism. And it definitely is that, but this book also has this angle. It's complaining about the fact that there is no like very easy to digest primer that doesn't have a lot of jargon of the subject in it, and this book could have been that. Then went off into territories of talking in the different jargon of the subject. So because I've read many things on the subject, I was fine, but I did notice it could have been a very short primer about the subject and be exactly what it wishes existed in the world, but that ended up going a little bit deeper than a primer would. Which is completely fine. It was just kind of frustrating to be like, oh, you really wish this thing happened in the world. Why aren't you making it happen? You are, but you're going a little bit further than what you're describing you want. The third and final audiobook that I finished this week is A River Enchanted. This is the first in what I believe is a duology, and this takes place on an island called Cadence, which I haven't looked up, but I'm pretty sure is a fictional island off the coast of Scotland. This one is definitely an ensemble cast, but we start with this character named Jack, who actually left the island about 10 years ago. He was sent by his laird to go to school on the mainland because there were some kind of behavioral issues with his growing up, and they wanted him to eventually come back to the island with this new knowledge. He was there studying music. In fact, as we meet him, he's currently trying to get back to the island because he got a letter from his laird telling him to come back and bring his harp. From there, we meet his childhood rival, we meet the captain of the guard, who is somebody he's always looked up to, we meet these different characters that have different family members, we meet his mother and some secrets that she's been keeping from him, and essentially he ends up having to use his experience and his knowledge with music to try to talk to the folk, because the folk on the island might be able to help them solve a mystery that is ongoing. I just finished this one yesterday. I actually listened to about half of this one yesterday because I was on a very long car trip, and then I just sat in the garden and I had to know how it was going to end. And the thing that I love the most about this is how the perspective flowed so beautifully between all of these different characters. I ended up caring for every character that we followed, which is not something that happens every time you read a book that has multiple point of view characters or multiple characters that the narrative is following. And we would seamlessly go from following an adult character to a child character, and I would be just as invested in everything that was happening in their lives every time. Like I said, I think this is the first in a duology because I looked up what the next book in the series is, and I think it's the only other book in the series, and I've already gotten it out from the library. So I will have to read that and report back to you within the next 3 weeks because that's how library loans work. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!